Hey, this your boy Diggaveli. Welcome back to the channel. And we got another interesting video, guys. And this is from my guy Larry Elder as he takes on the Garbage Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the Clown. And anybody who keeps up with the Breakfast Club, anytime they have on conservatives or just black people in general who don't think like them, black people who prefer to, hold themselves up by their own bootstraps without complaining and making excuses for everybody else and caught in victimhood. Like they just have so much disrespect for black conservatives, but I ain't gonna do too much, man. Let's get into it, man. Let's see what Larry got for their ass.
Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have Tesla Figueroa with us, and we got a special guest in the building, 2024 Republican presidential candidate Larry Elder. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
He does more than that, though. I mean, he's a radio host.
Radio host for 40 years.
Author, TV
host.
New York
host.
Times best-selling list. I've got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Corner of Hollywood and Vine, Southeast corner, just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a star on Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah, about a handful of radio guys do, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, because he's a great man. He's a great American and he's a great black man. And when you do the stuff that he's done for years, you deserve a star.
Yeah, I think it's you, Elvis Duran,
Angie
Howard
Martinez.
Stern,
Yeah.
Big Boy. Oh, Angie
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy. And we have an America First mega guy, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You said MAGA.
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America by far is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness.
Facts.
70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home married to a mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home married to a mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama was cited. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility.
Facts. And if anybody watches my videos, I said that before. Like Lyndon B. Johnson, when JFK passed and he became president, the welfare system, he literally said out his own mouth, we're going to have these Democrats, we're going to have these black people voting Democrats for the next 100 years. Go back and look it up.
You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people.
We got to do better.
Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of '64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty, you can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't?
Y'all hear this clown, man. A straight NPC clown. Oh, if your statistics are right. He's been doing this for decades, man. You're not even a real journalist. Like, literally, you just got on the radio to run your mouth about, like, what, culture topics. You're not educated on nothing. Like, this dude Charlamagne is a real clown. Who are you to think you can question Larry Elder? I'm pretty sure if you go look up his information, it's correct. This dude is a clown. If your statistics are right, come on, bro.
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And Charlamagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, a young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Facts.
White people do wrong.
What?
What do you mean?
What does white people do wrong? He's sitting here educating us about the problems in the black community. Here come this clown. Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong? What type of question is that, bro? That's one of the most ignorant, insane questions I ever heard somebody ask somebody. He's not worried about what white people do. He's worried about the problems we have, like our self-destructive culture that's eating us alive every day, from drug overdoses to murder. Like, this dude is a straight clown, bro. I don't see how he ever got platform. Charlamagne the Clown. That's his new name on my channel. That's his new name.
I mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there
racism?
used to be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
But at the top of mind, I probably.
Ah, man, there's so many. Why he sits here in a gold chair feeling like he a king getting paid millions of dollars to give his unwarranted opinion. His inaccurate opinions. He gets paid millions. Look at him. He's on everything. and this country is just racist. So terrible. It's so terrible for him. He's such a victim.
Maybe mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really?
Disgusting.
During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family. There's a direct.
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children, and I'm
Right.
a happily married
Right.
black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part. You know, but I just feel like everything is black. But you black is wrong. Black people do this, and black people do that. And when I ask,
I don't get it, though. Like, what is he supposed to be talking about? He's not white, bro. He's not trying to fix the white community. It's not as terrible or self-destructive as ours, man. Like, we have a real culture that we're kind of governed by. That's why when you growing up in the so-called hood ghettos and them places, a lot of kids that not into the street stuff or not into the gang stuff, that just might like anime or into technology, any of that stuff. Why do you think they're shunned in the hood? You're an outcast, man. People call you a lame. All type of stuff, man. Because you don't fit the identity of the black culture in America. And when you don't, man, to most of them in the inner cities and in the inner ghettos, you're an outcast. Charlamagne the Clown, man.
ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlamagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone re-elected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlamagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of '64 got passed. And he said,
The Civil Rights Act that only got passed because of Republicans, who Democrats shot it down and tried to veto and do everything they could to not pass it.
I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated, the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected.
And that's kind of funny, isn't it? Martin Luther King going this same route for years and years, and then the day he finally wakes up, he woke up. He said, "I believe I walked my people into a burning house," which means he started opening his eyes to what Malcolm X been saying and what people have been saying for years. He started to really catch on to how Democrats were doing, and then what do you know? They used him to get the black vote for LBJ and all that. Then what do you know? A day after he comes and talks to the people about how he's been misled, they kill him.
And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair, it's wrong, and you're discouraging black people from working hard.
Facts.
1990s.
Okay. Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that.
And before we even get started, this is probably the worst addition that they ever added to any radio or talk show that I ever seen in the history of radio talk show. This woman is literally brain dead, man. All beauty, no brains.
The system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to.
We're not going to go down that water hole because she don't know what the hell she talking about, and she know if she start talking in the real details about the black family and all this other stuff, she wouldn't look good. But like I said, just brain dead.
So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in
Okay.
charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who
The-
were
the-
Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge
Main
of the
idea.
system at the time? The Democrats.
I never seen somebody trying to sound so right and just sound so dumb, man. Incredible.
At the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right, and what I'm asking was it white people, so I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system?
Do y'all not hear the disrespect and smugness from this chick? Unless my mic was coming through clearly, you're not even on the playing field of intelligence with Larry Elder, man. These people are delusional.
Are black people in charge of that system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct? Okay. White Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people
not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the
Who's in charge?
system.
Well, who puts
was in charge?
who puts them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson
Who puts
white
them-
or black?
Who puts them in
Maybe
charge?
that'll
Well,
help.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is that the reason he did it is because of racism, then I
No.
disagree. He did it because of
So hold up, and look, she just as much like you did all that just to ask him if a man was white, bro. Everybody knows Lyndon B. Johnson is white, bro. He's in history books. You can get on YouTube. Like, why do all that just to ask what color the man is? Black people have to stop listening to these type of people, man. They do you no good. Nothing but harm. They want to keep you victims, keep you blaming people. How do you excel when you're always blaming somebody? You can't. Like, now, if we go and we fix all the problems in our own community, and then we still having these outrageous problems from everybody else, that's when we address the problems outside. But you gotta fix yourself, man, before you can go talk about fixing anybody.
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question. Was he white or black? Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you talked about the smash and grabs, right? And I find that interesting because when you see the mass shootings that happen, majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually, if you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, percentage of mass shooters is under that. Percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. Percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that
But no,
of
you
mass
specifically
shootings.
talked about the smash and grab. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about the mass shooters that are usually white males?
One more time, they are usually white males.
How do you go back to smash and grab, but then bring it back to mass murders, bro? Pick a subject to stay on. See, that's what they do with people. They sit here and try to throw all this word salads out at you and confuse you and confuse the crowd. They want you answering 3 or 4 questions at one time, and if you don't answer it perfectly together, then yeah, see, he don't know what he's talking about. See, it's a got you moment for these people. Charlamagne the Clown.
Because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number of mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population. They underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong? I'm gonna keep asking you that because I want.
Well, it
seems
seems to me, rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are,
No,
which
saying-
I don't think
I'm
it's
saying that there's a cause and
which
effect.
I don't think it's a particularly productive thing to do.
Well, I think
No,
I'm
no,
talking.
I think-
Like, how is that productive, though? Only thing Charlamagne, what white people do on what? You gonna spend your whole life worrying about what they doing. You gonna miss yours. But not Charlamagne, though. He just wants everybody else to worry about what white people doing while he makes millions of dollars running his mouth, man. Stop listening to these clowns, man. They mean you no good.
I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI said.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks live below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black-on-black crime.
Probably because we had no
But they
choice
still
but
were
to do it
living
ourselves.
below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end,
But they still believe in poverty. I said, what? The government was just supposed to hand everybody millions of dollars. Like, here, you're rich now. You don't have to live below the poverty line. This is a land of opportunity, man. A lot of us aren't taught to work hard as we kids. And we can do anything we want to do. Because we grow up in that culture, man, that tells you, hey, you got to be this, you got to be that. Like, get out of that box and go get you some money.
between the poverty line. But let's move forward on
Well,
systems.
can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home. A strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously. and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter, Charlamagne.
Facts.
Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations.
And look at him, man. He don't know shit about what Larry Elder talking about. Can't go and name one fact to bring up no point. Look at his face. So skeptical. But if I guarantee you, if a white dude sat up here and told Charlamagne some stuff, he'll be, oh, wow. Oh, this and that. Like, bro, it's disgusting, bro. Like, this is why real black leaders couldn't excel in the community, man. People like him. Like, just look at his face when he's getting told all this good information. It's disgusting.
Organizations like Black Lives Matter.
All of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres. Like, every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy it.
Every time, look, the Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt. It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. It was rebuilt, by the way, by black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, who destroyed it to begin with?
It was racists who destroyed it. No question about it. We've had race riots, but so have Japanese.
So you do agree that there's racism? I'm just so confused.
You know, I never even came close to saying. I never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just said you don't think it's systemic racism.
Now, these people are so egregious, man. Like, everybody knows their racism, man. Everybody knows it. But the problem is people are confused on where it's coming from. You know, it's not coming from Trump. It's not coming from most Republicans. Now, don't get me wrong. You got some Republicans who might not feel, you know. So go happy about black people, man. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the social media and just the political polarized environment. But we're not talking about them. The personal problems that them people got to deal with, man. In their own head. Their ignorance. But, you know, we acknowledge racism for what it is. But people confused on where it's coming from.
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called slavery. We had something called Jim Crow.
That destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was the system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now that's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants, because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you go on to say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused on, do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time to build it back, there was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism. Let's talk about.
So what are you just hung up?
She's confused because she's dumb, man. That's what it is, man. And I hate to say this type of stuff about black women because I love black women. I love everybody, man. But one thing I'm not going to do is sugarcoat shit and pick a side on any of this stuff, man. I pick what's right and the facts. And she's just literally like, how does she even get platformed, man? And look at Envy. It don't matter what good information Larry Elder give, man. He's just ready to go out of there, man, buy another gold chain off his $1 million he making by just doing nothing and running his mouth being a shield. Like, disgusting.
Can I?
He trying to disrespect Larry Elder. He got a Crown Royal bag in front of him at work.
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please? Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s. They had riots against Chinese in LA, in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American or a Japanese American kid to have a child outside of wedlock, and a strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because
I didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community.
That's what you're saying.
You said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
You talk about the Asian community. Asian community is easy for them to get loans for.
No, he just said I didn't say that. He don't even acknowledge it. Just keep talking. This dude's a fucking clown. I I don't even know why he's on the show. Straight cornball, and he think he's the coolest person ever. Like, bro, you a DJ that plays shit music in clubs. Who are you to disrespect Larry Elder, man? I hope one day I can go on here, man.
Easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community.
Okay.
If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which
Right,
is why one of the reasons I'm running for president for school choice.
Also, would you say that?
What is he talking about? No Wi-Fi. McDonald's got Wi-Fi. So you mean tell me schools don't have Wi-Fi, but fast food restaurants do? And schools get way more funding. Well, I ain't gonna say they got more money than fast food restaurants, but schools get actual funding. People just handing them money. So how they don't got Wi-Fi?
It's in our community. It's also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Boy.
Systemic fast food.
Okay, you said a number of things. I just addressed one of them.
You don't have to buy that. You don't have to eat there.
In 1965, Barack Obama, who was then in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, you know, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a black community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne. But so
what's not true?
You're bringing back facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because of you. Because of you. Owns a house, right? But my father
because of you and the drive. Because of you and the drive you put into him.
Did not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into him.
We're not gonna have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak. I'll let you talk.
Okay.
We have a conversation. But when we talk about it, right? It's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores. It's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting.
Then why don't your fraudulent ass who come in here with all this jury on every day put your money together with the rest of your friends and open banks so people can get them? It's because these people are all talk, no action. Only thing they do is criticize and critique everybody else while they sit back and make tons of money. Oh, you hear what he just said? My son's going to be successful in real estate, this and that. So if you can talk like that about your son, why can't you talk like that about other black people? Why do you have to tell them, oh, well, you got it hard, or you got to be a victim, you got to do this and that? But when it comes to your kids, oh, my son's going to be successful. Why can't you talk about the whole community like that? This clown just exposed himself.
Grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and 1,000 times less than our community.
Man, wow.
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against whites and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man once said that if you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
let's just.
And she just wants to keep cutting them off.
When you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, of the population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about the rate.
I'm talking about the rate. Whatever it is, the bottom line is
whatever
more white
it
people
is
than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking point.
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they say.
I'm not sure you
No, I
understood.
understood.
I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995, when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, "Okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back."
I'm not talking about
Fast
this,
forward,
sir.
they weren't able to pay them back, which proved
Sir,
the
I'm not
Citicorp
talking
point.
about that. I'm not talking
I
about
know you're
that. I'm
not,
talking about your
'cause
response.
inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you
I'm
like
not talking
numbers,
about
I
Washington Post
said-
said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinancing loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of
20%
their credit
black
score.
And all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming
I'm
from
not-
the Washington Post. That's 2023, not
I
1995.
can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Elder. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers. They still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
What?
Nobody
Well, let
said
me help-
no.
He just brought up fathers in the home and compared it to corrupt charges being placed against Donald Trump and Giuliani. Yo, these people are literally clowns. If you can't see that by now, God help you. And I'm gonna show this little clip from Larry Elder because we obviously didn't get to that part, but I'm pretty disgusted. I can't even watch any more of this trash, man. I'm losing brain cells. But let me go to this clip right here, man, because this is a crazy clip right here, and we got to check it out, man.
Incident where a person of color. Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
brother.
I'm just asking.
That's crazy.
Think you've ever
He
had-
Well,
has
I'm
it.
acutely aware, Charlamagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, "You ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump," it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
Fast, dummy. Look his whole face. You know what he's getting at. Look, don't throw punches if you can't take them, man. Destroyed his ass.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I'm
Not let you upset.
Well,
What I did say
well,
then
you
was
just not
it's
talk
not
about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney, because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
I mean, no, for the record, I'm not
Yeah, clown. That was your nigga wake up call. Hey, look, torched his ass.
a Democrat.
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what
parties
you
trash.
are. I never
Yeah.
even asked you about your party affiliation.
Yeah, I think-
I'm just saying, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say, think a certain kind of way,
Facts.
otherwise you, quote, ain't black? Wow.
How should I have replied to him? You think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I
Facts.
should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump? How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way. As
Well,
I
I
said-
did.
as I
Probably
said,
right, but I didn't take it in that way. This dude's a real clown because you don't look at reality, bro. You don't look at reality. You paid to say and think a certain way, bro. You're a clown. Larry Elder doesn't have nothing sitting on his head telling him what to do. This is what freedom looks like. This is what modern day slavery looks like.
him in that moment, you know, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for my people now, how are you going to atone for the things you've done to my people?
Right.
That's it.
Right, and this is a guy, Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people, and his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He supports...
And it's definitely hurting people. I had 3 cousins die last year off fentanyl. 3 of my male cousins died last year off fentanyl. And these are cousins that I grew up around. Not old cousins you might see family. These are cousins I grew up around with a ton of other friends that passed away. Just in the last 2 years alone from fentanyl. This came straight through the border. So I've lost people. I've actually lost people in my life from that.
Oppose the school choice when he has his own kids in private school, and we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people, and then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think as a black person, it blew my mind.
Yeah, definitely blew my mind.
Doesn't care about either party.
Like, definitely blew my mind. But it just goes to show you, man, people like him are shields. How dare you let somebody come onto your platform and talk to you like that? I don't care if you running for president of Earth or the universe. Ain't no way, man. But shout out to my man Larry Elder, man, for coming in here and dismantling these clowns, man. About time. That's why they don't like having people like him on, man, way above their education level. Like, it's crazy, man. Well, y'all seen it like I seen it, man. I'm out.